We all know about scope creep. That's when you end up doing more, but you don't get compensated. You're just giving it away for free. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution. And it is something that happens when you just hear about that one more thing, or you see something that you know would be beneficial because you are a client-centered firm owner. But I just want to say scope creep, it can be sneaky. And it sneaks in ways that you might not even have considered before. And the real truth is that so often the biggest reason for scope creep isn't necessarily about your clients. It is about you as the firm owner, and sometimes your staff as well, especially when you're a client-centered firm. So I want to be able to look at 3 different types of scope creep that occur, and the ones that tend to happen most, they actually quietly drain your profits, they cut into your time, and you end up wondering, why am I working so hard for so little? So we want to be able to look at what's going on, have some awareness, and be able to hopefully stop it before it gets too much out of control, or if it's already out of control, how to start to wrangle it back in. So the very first type of scope creep we want to look at is the self-initiated scope creep. It might be by you, it might be by someone on your team. And so often when that happens, you don't even realizing it. And it creates this snowball effect where something little starts that you do, and you continue to just expand until what you originally agreed upon with this client is so different from what you're actually doing because of the incremental gains that you added on over time. And once again, it's not necessarily about the client adding more work. It's about you doing the extra work. And it just goes under the radar. Like I said, it's that snowball effect. So it could be things like maybe reviewing financials, or maybe you see something that the client could benefit from, and you just think to yourself, oh, let me just go ahead and fix that without actually discussing it with the client first. And because you are so client-centered, you go above and beyond, you want to delight your clients, you just naturally do this because it is the right thing to do. It's so aligned with your culture, your values, and the type of firm owner that you are. So this is something I was discussing recently with Sam, and he was drowning in work. Not even during tax season, it was all year long. And what happened is once we did a client cost analysis, he did a profitability analysis, we found that maybe 20% of the extra work that he was doing wasn't even client requested. It was self-imposed. And what Sam was thinking was that, oh, this client could benefit from this support. Well, I can go ahead and do this analysis for them. And at first it felt like he was providing value, and he was, but he was also giving away premium level services and clients weren't paying for it. So he was doing very high level services, but his clients were paying more average, if not low, monthly fees. And after actually Sam did that cost analysis, he was shocked. He realized that at least 10% of his monthly revenues were being given away. He was giving away so much work and he wasn't getting compensated for it. So by just addressing this single issue, he was able to increase his revenues without adding any additional work to his workload. So that's something to think about. And part of what we did is we actually created this really simple process that he could use before taking on any extra work. So instead of having that knee-jerk reaction where a request comes in, or even where you think to yourself, okay, a client could benefit from this, before he started implementing something, he needed to ask himself, first of all, did the client request this? A lot of times the answer was no, they didn't even know what to request. The second thing is, if he didn't do this particular thing, would they notice? So that was the next question. Would they notice if he didn't do it? And the last question that he asked himself, am I maybe giving away something that ought to be part of a higher level package or a premium service? So once again, did the client request this? If I didn't do it, would they notice? Am I actually giving away something that ought to be part of a premium service or a higher package? And once again, it wasn't about doing less. It was more about getting paid for what he was already doing. So that's the very first type, is the self-imposed scope creep, as a firm owner or someone on your team is doing that. The next type is the client initiated. This one's so much more common. And okay, what we are looking at now is when that client reaches out and says, can you do this for me? Or maybe they are pressuring you, pushing you for extra work, saying, isn't that included? And what happens is that a lot of times a client starts out with that very basic bookkeeping package and they start wanting tax advice. Or possibly someone emails you with that quick question, but that quick question requires 45 minutes of research. And another option is that clients, they just assume that they're paying you a monthly fee. It is all inclusive because you never set the expectations that it might have been otherwise. So those are some of the reasons that this starts to happen from the client side. And maybe think about, who is one of those long-term clients that you've had from right from the beginning when you started your firm? They're still with you, and this particular person has special requests, or they want things done a specific way that is very unique to that particular client and isn't something that applies to all your other clients. And once again, it's that snowball effect. It starts out really, really small, but then the requests start to add up over time. And oh, maybe you realize that what started out with someone being very basic, there were now a couple requests. All of a sudden, this client is calling you all the time regarding financial decisions and insights. They have a lot of questions about their financials because they've grown, but your scope of work has never adjusted. And because of that, you're now offering CFO level advisory services for low package bookkeeping rates that are actually even lower than your current rates that you're charging new clients coming in. So we need to fix this. The main thing is, and I know that this might sound difficult, but it's about setting some boundaries and reinforcing them as necessary. So when a client reaches out to you, they have a simple request. They want you to do something without having to pay for the additional service. You want to say, I'd love to help. Right now, that service isn't included in your current plan or package, but I can absolutely provide that. And this would be the investment for it. Would you like me to send over the details? Or you can say, I'd love to help. Right now, that's not something we're currently doing for you. Let's meet to discuss what it is that you want and what the investment would be in order to be able to do that. When would you like to set up a meeting? So those are two different things you could easily say to someone, whether it's in an email or actually in a conversation when you get those out of scope requests. And it's a way to be able to do it that's still client-centered, where you are professional, but you're not immediately saying yes, and you're letting them know that this is the next step in your process. So once again, it's not about saying no. It's not about saying yes immediately either. It's about having a way to structure this properly. And I just want to say, if you find that this happens over and over and over again, then it might be time for you to review your client agreements and make sure that they were clearly defined with what is included as well as what isn't included. And also, if they're asking for things that are outside the scope, then what is the process you have in place to address those? And yes, you can apply this with your long-term legacy clients as well. You've always done it one way, but now you're doing things a little bit differently. Okay, so we looked at the self-initiated with things that you start doing to expand the scope that weren't even requested. We looked at the client request. The third type is package customization scope creep. Let me say it once more, package customization scope creep. So this is where each client has some unique needs for their particular business, and you're very, very helpful, client-centered. But what's happening is that you're making changes for every single client. No two clients are the same. And there's a lot of things that you're doing for individual clients that just aren't repeatable. As a result of that, it is interfering with your firm's growth. It's making it less scalable than if you were able to stick with more customized packages that fit the majority of your clients' needs. And it's something I actually see all the time. Maybe you have a client that started with standardized packages, but then over time, you tweak and you adjust it for each and every client. So what starts out standardized is later on very, very customized for each and every client. The other thing is that possibly you had one client, they started out with meeting you maybe on a quarterly basis, but their needs grew or something changed. And now you're meeting with them monthly, but the fees that they're paying you still included just the quarterly meeting. So instead of meeting them 4 times a year, you're now meeting them 12 times a year. But the thing is that their fees remain the same. That didn't change. And then the other thing is that maybe you have a client who has expanded, they want more insights, they realize that they need to make some changes to improve their profit margins, and now they're asking for customized reports to be able to have better insights into their financials. So those are some of the natural ways that you start customizing client packages without even realizing it, because you're just very, very client-centered. But as a result of that, it's not scalable. No two clients had the same exact agreements. So what we want to do is make sure that clients are on a more standardized plan, and also that you're able to maintain boundaries with your clients when they are asking for these change requests that aren't included in the package. So this is where you once again need a process. And I want to say that, yes, even with your current clients, we can get them into packages, we can standardize it, and we can create a structured framework. You can do this. It makes such a big difference. So I talk frequently about having 3 packages. Let's call them silver, gold, and diamond. They are very clear in what the scope would be for each and every one. It sets very clear boundaries and also starts to establish expectations. So if a client comes to you and they want something outside of the package, well, then you want to discuss the options and the investment before getting started. So you have to stop yourself from immediately saying yes. If you say, let's discuss this, let's review it, it's not a bad thing. Nobody is going to feel that you're not client-centered because you didn't give them that immediate yes. So instead of saying, sure, I can adjust this for you, what you want to say is, that's a great request. That level of service is actually included in our premium package. Would you like me to send the details? Or you could say something like, that's a great request. That level of service is not in your current package. Let's meet so I understand exactly what you need. And then I can be able to guide you forward as to what that would be and also how much the investment would be. By doing this, you're setting very clear boundaries. Clients realize that there are distinctions between one package and the next, and where they are might no longer meet their needs. They might want to have more, and in order to have more, they have to invest more, because you're not a 501c3. You're not giving it all away without compensation. So let's think about this. Scope creep is not always obvious. It has a snowballing effect. And a lot of times, being client-centered as a firm owner, you might be the primary cause of it. So here's what I want you to start thinking about. Very first thing is create a scope creep process. That's like a tongue twister. Okay, create a scope creep process where you are assessing before you take on any extra work. Stop yourself, go through those 3 questions I mentioned earlier to self-assess whether you ought to be doing it, if it's going to make a difference, and what the investment would be, and then how to communicate that to your client. Now, with number 2, if you have clients who are pushing for more work, but they don't want to pay for it, they're not used to paying for that, come up with the right words in a very client-centered way to be able to redirect them that you need to discuss this to understand what it is that they want and what that would mean moving forward and what that investment would be. So you want to be able to make sure you had the exact language in order to be able to respond to it without being caught off guard or going back to your old behavior of immediately saying yes. So you're doing more work without compensation. And then the third thing is look at your packages. Are they structured for profit, or are you actually giving away endless customizations to your clients? And they're actually now getting a CFO level advisory packages at standard package rates. So that's something to think about by going through this process of looking at your process and starting to have a way to be able to self-assess first or respond to your clients and reviewing your client agreements and your packages. You're going to now be able to stop scope creep from happening. It is going to stop the money leaks in your business, just like it did for Sam that I mentioned earlier. And as I mentioned, Sam, by going through this exact process, was able to take that 10% of uncompensated work, and now he has increased revenue. So if you want help with structuring your pricing, your packages, the exact words to say how to create boundaries where there weren't, so we can rein in those client expectations, then let's have a conversation. We'll discuss your pricing issues, where you're doing actually more work without compensation, and how to be able to correct that so that you are now moving forward and you're getting paid for the work you're doing. You're no longer just giving it away for free, and that clients had that expectation. And by doing that, you can quickly see at least a 15 to 25% increase in revenue by eliminating these three forms of scope creep in your firm. So if that interests you, you want to talk further about how to be able to apply this to your firm, then let's go ahead and connect. Go to businesssuccesssolution.com/let's talk. What we'll do is we'll map out your next steps. We'll be able to help you reclaim your time and increase your profit margins. Remember, boundaries create freedom and profitability for you and your firm. You deserve to have a firm that raises your quality of life instead of one that takes from it. I love to be able to hear how this resonated with you, what you're taking away, what you're implementing, maybe what it is validating. Please let me know how you connected with this topic and what you're doing to really take charge of your firm so you no longer have those scope creep issues. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing accounting firm owners how to double their income working half the time.